Hello to everyone. We are here still in Moscow after the parade of the 9th of May, the 80th birthday victory against Nazism. And I have the honor to be with Mirko Casale, who's running a fantastic show on RT in Spanish, especially for Latin America, which is called Va, which is more or less where you go. And you're a kind of star in some Latin American countries like Cuba, Salvador, Honduras, many others. Maybe not yet completely in your own country because you came from Argentina. But only the funny thing is that your name is Mirko. I'm Georgie. And we're both coming from a country which doesn't exist anymore. Sadly, former Yugoslavia of Tito. You come from Montenegro. Well, how is life in Moscow for you, the Latin American guys? Not too cold, not too much bears and no?
No, well, first of all, thank you very much, George, for the invitation for your show. Russians and Latin Americans are more similar in more ways that could be thought in advance. Of course, there are big differences, cultural difference and everything, but most Latin Americans here get to Russian life pretty easily, except, well, the language, sometimes the weather. For me, the weather in Russia is great. I love the Russian winters. I have like discussions with Russians. They hate their winter. I find it pretty nice with snow and everything. It's like a nice place to be on winter as well. But most and Russians like very much Latin America. They really like when you say, I'm from Venezuela or I'm from Argentina, Mexico, doesn't matter, Cuba, wherever, they usually just like, oh, so nice. I know where's your country, what are you doing here? You speak Russian so well, in case you speak so well. And it's very welcoming, especially for Latin America. For Russians, Latin America, it's like a place of dreams, magic, good weather. They always have a very warm and welcoming attitude to Latin America. Yeah, like the stereotypes as well. But yeah, of course. Basically, like the smiles, the music, like they have like sometimes a little naive way of thinking about Latin America, just like it's a place where everybody is happy all the time, which is not true. But they really love Latin America, so it's 100% of Latin Americans that you can meet here, they will say, I was surprised when I came to Russia because I had these stereotypes in my mind and I found a completely different situation.
Okay, so we have guys in France who know you, but not too many because they have to speak Spanish. And for the others who doesn't know you, what is Va? What is It's geopolitics. It's a show about geopolitics, but in a very special way, no?
Yeah, Va is a show about geopolitics, but with a sense of humor, and we do like parodies, and we make like a lot of humor and commentary with a humorous style. So, like, it's not that many shows that make that. It's not like the only one, of course, not in the Spanish-speaking world as well. But it has like a mix between geopolitics and irony, some sarcasm and humor. And those are mixed. And I had the chance I was born in Argentina, but I also lived more than 10 years in Venezuela. So I'm sort of familiar with both sense of humors, like the Southern sense of humor and also the Caribbean sense of humor. So I can just, like, when I write the scripts, more or less adapt to the Latin American sense of humor, which is not exactly the same in every area. So that made, I guess, like the show quite successful, because it's a mix not that common, and also because being based on Russia, we add something different, because we speak from Russia, and also about a lot of the videos we make are about Eurasia, China, the Middle East, the genocide in Palestine, and so on.
So you're not only on Latin America?
No, we think about all over the world. Yeah, depending on.
You have a little bit more specification on Latin America, or it's like...
No, sometimes, I mean, before 2022, it was more Latin America than Eurasia. But then, like, the geopolitical axis in the whole world in some way changed more through Asia, even Africa. So we now speak more about Eurasia than Latin America. Right now, much more about Eurasia than Latin America. Okay. But for Latin American, it's interesting, because we can tell them something different that local channels can speak, because we are here in Russia and we know more about the current situation in Eurasia. So right now it's more Eurasiatic show than Latin American, but it's still the main audience is from Latin America.
And what is the audience by age? It's young people, older, or
it's like our wider audience for us. It's around 35 to 45 years old. Okay. That's like basically just like a little younger than me, just a little.
Oh, you look very well. Yeah, it's a.
But yeah, that's the main audience. It's around that. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, quite young considering the subject.
Yeah.
Yes. The humor helps, I guess.
Yes.
To catch people.
Yeah, it helps a lot, because I'm not shy when it comes to put humor in even subjects that are not too humorous. But it's like what they call, I don't know if English is black humor, just like when it's dark and...
So you find even a way to have humor even with like civilian deaths in Gaza.
Yes,
somehow black humor.
Yes,
of course.
Yes, black humor. Yes. In for instance, we can speak about Netanyahu like Herod and these kind of things. It's just like you have to be very careful, but any subject can be put some humor on it. Yeah. That's something that the audience really enjoys that. And also they enjoy that we use phrases that are typical in Latin America. So they say, oh, a show from Russia, and they are saying this saying that my granddad told me when I was a kid, and that also helps, like, you then become like close to them, that they feel you. I mean, sometimes for me it's quite fun, because being named Mirko and working in a Russian channel, they sometimes tell me, oh, Mirko, you speak perfect Spanish. How do you do that? And I was like, okay, I was born in Argentina. Maybe it's not very obvious, but that's my native language. In fact, my Russian is not very fluent. My mother tongue, it's Spanish. And yeah, but that kind of mix, that like I'm part Slavic and part Latin, it like retro gets fueled, and it's part of the show as well. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Regarding the black humor, we have a very famous humorist in France who said the problem is not to laugh about anything. You can laugh about anything. The problem is with whom you're laughing.
Yeah, exactly. Because the humor, it's always sometimes confused with like fun and joy, but humor, it's sort of like a thing that makes you laugh and then think about what you left. That's what I understand by humor. So it's, a lot of people in the audience, in the comments, sometimes they say just like, this show is the only one that makes me laugh about some terrible things. And I really appreciate that. It's not something that just like, I was surprised that I could be laughing at something so tragic or so, but it makes me, it helps me go through like this difficult situation, because otherwise, I mean, the geopolitics could you affect you emotionally. I mean, I think we all more or less are affected by the geopolitical situation sometimes. So humor helps you go through it like softly.
Those humor helps also for understanding. There is a saying that it goes like, one drawing is worth 1,000 pages when it's good. And it's the same with jokes. It's not only fun, but easy to explain a situation.
Yes, exactly. And the humor, I always say, I don't think it's the phrase is mine. I've heard somewhere, but just like humor, it's a very serious thing, and you can use it like very wisely, and it helps you understand. And usually with like the structure that we do, it's just like tell the facts without any humor, and then make a funny comment about it that show how absurd or cynical or contradictory those facts are, or comments that, I don't know, Kaya Kallas said something about something, and then you can say like more or less like the stand-up style that you go through a story which is not fun, and then we try to
Have you done stand-ups before?
No, we are trying to do the stand-ups, but as many comedians, I'm quite serious. So I'm sometimes I haven't found the way to do the stand, but we've tried and we made some attempts. I mean, sometimes we were in a recent video we were saying just like Trump wanted a really wise guy and really smart and experienced guy for the Department of State, but he couldn't find only Marco Rubio. Did kind of contradictory stuff, and that's more or less a stand-up comedy-ish style, but it's not that the style of the show. Really, it's just like I'm sitting on a couch like this on the show usually. Sometimes we do actings in the beginning when I impersonate some characters. Could be concrete characters or stereotypes of characters. I mean, United States is usually like a cowboy, for instance. It's like a cowboy, and then we just like we are representing the politics of the United States with that character. Sometimes just like could be a French, Swiss, German, and I just try to impose my accents. I studied theater so many years, and I liked. My favorite impersonation was when I did a Netanyahu. It's not an imitation, but Netanyahu, it was like a drug addict begging to Biden for more weapons. And I always pay you, give me my weapons. And it was like that kind of pathetic character. So that also helps. Mm-hmm.
Do you use or will use AA or MUP or puppets?
Not in this show. I used, when I was in Venezuela, we did a show with puppets in the public television there for a year, and it was also fun to make puppets like a political humor. I know in France they were very popular in some years ago. I don't know if they're still going.
No,
and also
Millionaire bought the television, and the first thing they killed the puppets. Sure.
No surprise,
because it was very good. And
yeah, exactly. That was a problem.
It was if I ask you, it's a very good way for many people to understand things, something that's too boring to listen too long. And Well, but you need a talent. Like you have one, because it's not for everybody to find the 2-3 phrases that, oh, okay, I got it.
Yeah, we try to also make complicated things simple. One day I saw in a video somebody were commenting about the show, and they made a critic against like the show, but for me it was a compliment, because he said that show is not for experts, and what they say experts already know. They don't find anything new. I mean, or ever. It's just like, and I was like, yeah, that's exactly what we want. We don't want to be a show for very, very experts, people who are like very into that. No, we want people to understand, normal people who, of course, they are interested in geopolitics, but they are not
Yeah, you're not like
academic.
Oh, your question is very interesting. I will explain it to you in 12 points. So, starting first point 1 and point 1A.
Exactly. That's what we don't want. So when they say this is a show that for experts, it's nothing new. I mean, when we...
Well, but they can have a good laugh.
Yeah,
at least.
At least. And also, sometimes... for us, it's very complimentary when somebody says it's like, I'm an economy teacher and I couldn't explain this to my pupils, but your video did. I mean, I tried to and they didn't understand, and I used your video to show to, and that's like, great, you know about economy far more than us, but we try to be like more teaching style, so we can reach wider audiences and which are interested, but yeah, they are not experts, and for us that's okay.
I guess that Emmanuel Macron is a superstar on your show, because it's hilarious even without
Who?
Emmanuel Macron, the French president, of the mighty France.
Of course. Macron, we've been through many characters that help us a lot to make videos when we had no inspiration. Macron was one of those. I especially remember when the French government was surprised that Africa had a better view for Russia or China than for France. And they were like genuinely, I mean, just like sincerely surprised about this. And for us, it was like really funny. It's just like saying why in Latin America could be some kind of resentment towards Spain. I mean, it's pretty obvious.
Or it's
exactly, or the States. But he was like, I don't know, why did they say in the Russians that we don't have? And we also did a acting where it was like a lover who was just like, you left me for that Russian guy. Why are you doing that to Africa? And that, because Macron gave us a lot of this kind of contradictory or absurd situations. But our favorite was the former foreign minister from the European Union, Josep Borrell, because
Kaja Kallas is fantastic, no?
Kaja Kallas is also fantastic, but Kaja Kallas makes you more angry, and Josep Borrell makes you...
it's maybe because he's good looking, no?
I don't think so. No, the thing is, Borrell, for instance, when he said, and that for us was like a gift from heaven, when Borrell says, like, Europe is a beautiful garden and the rest of the world is a jungle. For us, it was like, I remember in that week, we had no idea what subject should we speak about today. And then he said that, and I read that before, and just like, he said that for real. I need to find that video, because I cannot believe that they're responsible for the foreign policy of the European Union is saying the rest of the countries of the world that they are a jungle. And it's a phrase that we still use and all of the audience, it's completely familiar with that. And we usually speak about the European Union as the garden. It's not more. And that was a gift from Borrell.
Do you use the super phrase of Jean-Claude Juncker, the former president of the European Commission, who had this fantastic saying. He said, "There can't be democracy against European treaties."
No.
You don't have that one?
No.
This one is just like, what?
Yeah, it's serious. Yeah, and the
I had to recheck. No, come on, it's not possible.
it's not possible that
It's so honest. Democracy, but not against us.
Yeah, sometimes you get, it's just like the idea that maybe that phrase was caught like in a hidden camera or something, but no, they say that like in front of everybody in a press conference or in the European Parliament. You have that feeling that just like they really think that way, and at the end it's like the show. I mean, it's you can laugh at it, but it's really tragic. And it's really worrying that they really think like that. And they think in that so strongly that they have no problem in speak about that loudly to everybody. And if somebody is surprised or outraged, they will say, "What? Of course we're a garden. You're a jungle. What's the problem about that?"
Neocolonial way of thinking in deep. They're not...
Exactly, in deep. Mm-hmm.
Well, I know it's, I think, easier for you, for what you're doing when you have guys like Trump or Trudeau or Musk or Macron. It's like, thank God.
Yeah.
Sometimes, are they stealing your job?
Yes.
Because it's even funny when they're just speaking, it's like, what? It's an actor? Or?
Sometimes you have nothing to add what they did. It's like they speak for themselves. For instance, Biden was also a very fun to I mean, not geopolitically speaking. It's geopolitically no fun at all. I mean, for a show, it was very good. Trump, of course. The bad thing for us with Trump is that he changes his mind very fast. Yeah. And we are not a live show. So that's why we make the script, we record, we edit, and then he says completely. So at the end, it's like, I'm not doing more videos about Trump after he says that like 3 times or 4 times. So he's not going to change his mind. And funnily enough, I read some weeks ago that the cabinet of Mr. Trump, they do the same. And they said, I don't know if they use that word, but they say, Trump speaks a lot of bullshit. So we do not take him seriously until the second time. The first time he says something, I'm going to put these tariffs on, they say, oh, okay. And they completely ignore him. And when after 2 days or 3, he says exactly the same instruction, they say, oh, he's serious. But at the first time, they ignore him because they think he's only speaking things that he passed through his mind in that moment, and he will forget about it soon. But when he insists, okay, that's an order.
At least he's a better president than the one who is confusing people with flowers.
Yeah.
It's plus.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, going now to the geopolitics. One other question. Do you have fun also? You make fun with the Russians, Chinese, the Africans, or you're just making fun with the Western part of the world?
I work with all kind of geopolitical characters, but of course I have my favorites, and the ones that are unfavorites in geopoliticals are the favorites for making these characterizations.
First,
but we've made some but when we make Chinese or Russians, we make them look as the colonial thinking looks them. You know the difference. It's basically we make like kind of Hollywood's way of how they see the Russians and the Chinese.
Well, putting half naked on a bear with a rifle on the back.
Exactly, that kind of stereotypes. And we play a lot with the Russian stereotypes that they are all spies and they are always drunk or whatever, we make a lot of fun, but it's like the way they saw Russia.
I think Marco wants to. But don't worry, it's okay. You know, it's not a live show, so. Ça va? Ah, yeah, okay. Nice. Now going to geopolitics, because the world is changing very fast. We are doing a lot of geopolitical shows. Of course, they're more boring than yours, and they're more like expert. Even if we try sometime to make some joke, because what is the feeling in a place we don't know very well at the end of the day in France, in Latin America? How they, as a whole, how they feel this huge change from unipolar world to multipolar, and how they are they afraid that Uncle Sam we come back with like Condor-like operations and say, okay, that's enough. And for example, maybe what they did in Brazil against Lula and tries against Maduro in Venezuela, even though you don't like Venezuela, but they try to completely fuck up the country. So are the Latin American afraid of that past?
Then in Latin America, of course, that past it's very present for every country, but in different ways. And the thing with Latin America is that we have all the time like this government changing from usually very pro White House government and then to another completely against, or something in the middle. And that's how the politics in Latin America work. So at the end, these kind of changes, how are they saw from Latin America depends a lot in which country and in which political moment. And if we are speaking about majorities or we're speaking about governments, so that's all that mix. And sometimes, like in general, you have like right-wing countries in Latin America. All of them doesn't really matter if it's a Democrat or a Republican in the White House. They would be aligned with the United States. Even Javier Milei, he said that. No, I prefer Republicans. But Biden, when he was the president, because Biden is the president of the United States, and I love the States, and I have a very good relation with blah, blah, blah. And so at the end, it's just like, okay, we are done. Another, like I completely, like they don't care who is on the White House, and they are like confrontive, like Nicaragua, Cuba, Venezuela, Bolivia. It's like they don't care, but on the other way. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a Republican or a Democrat. I mean, there's a difference, but at the end, we have nothing to do with them. And the rest of the governments, it's like in between of them. For instance, if you are a progressive government, but not purely anti-imperialist, when there's a Democrat in the White House, usually those countries are a little afraid of becoming too close to China because Biden could be in, and Biden is not that far away from me like a Trump or a Bush or whatever. And when that changes, they react in another way. There's Trump, there's a Republican. Then I go to China. But that makes like it's all the time changing because you have all this complexity at the same time, different countries, different governments in the White House. And for me, my personal opinion is that Latin America should find a way to behave with complete independence of who is in each moment in the White House. For China, for instance, it's a little, of course, they have another system, they have another millennial mentality. They sometimes cannot understand Latin America because they say, okay, I agreed with this government to make this huge infrastructure, like for instance, or to work in the Panama Channel, and then they change government or change in the White House, and they say, no, not with the Chinese. And they say, oh, I'm sorry, with the Chinese, no. So at the end, it's quite stressful for another countries to know if it's going to be stable, the relationship with Latin America. That's like the biggest challenge for Latin America, to have the Uncle Sam all the time conditioning the way the whole region behaves.
So, can we say, I think I'm mistaken, it's a little bit late and a bit tired. Is the Mexican president Juarez who said, so far from God, so close to the United States? Or,
I know the phrase, but I'm not sure if he says that, but I think it's, yeah.
The community will correct me.
Exactly.
This is the other one. Okay, sorry. Je m'excuse if it's not Juarez. But, well, this phrase was said at the end of the 19th century. So far from God, so close to the United States. Does it apply?
Yeah,
for the whole Latin America now?
It still applies. For Mexico, it's even harder because they are straight on the border. But it applies in some other gradients, I mean, depending on the political situation, the distance, to all of the region. They are like, even, as I said, progressive presidents are like, no, we are independent, but our independence is different depending on who's governing in the White House. So at the end, it's not that independent. There's and sometimes that dependence, it's not voluntary. I mean, it's like you came to a country which was basically a colony of the United States in some way for 50 years. You cannot change that from one day to another. You had to play with that reality, no? And that's the reality of basically the whole of Latin America, except Cuba, that it's used to resist for 60 years, and Venezuela for 20, yeah, very few of them.
What is your feeling as an expert in geopolitics now? What is your feeling about what is happening regarding what you just said? Until not so long ago, we were still in a unipolar world, and of course for Latin American countries, they were just under the United States. But now we have these BRICS, and that gets stronger and stronger, and that's supportive with big countries, strong in each in their way. I mean, the Chinese, the Indians, the Russians. Even Brazil now is somehow like superpower. Did the war in Ukraine accelerated, from your point of view, the shift to the multipolar world and the capacity to more people in Latin America to say, oh, okay, we can resist. We have guys who can help us.
Yeah, the war in Ukraine was, it changed everything, but like not the war in Ukraine per se, but the reaction of the G7, could say, of the Europe, how they reacted, because the way they reacted was so cynical and contrary of what they always said and did, that it was obvious for the whole world. Like, for instance, in sports, you have the example in sports and in the Olympics. For instance, you say, okay, no, this war was horrible because what Russia did was unacceptable, and without speaking about the whole situation, but that was like the common speech. But at the same time, most people say, why do they forbid the Russian sportsmen and sportwomen now because of that? When the United States invaded Iraq, no U.S. athlete was forbidden. And at the end, these kind of things made people say like, okay, so we were, the people who were not aware already, they were said that we are in a world with our rules, for a few people that they say that everyone should make, but it's not. It's only for their benefit.
Because it's the garden. You forgot it. It's the garden, man. And the other is jungle.
The garden.
I thought you were an expert.
Yeah, it's garden. These garden things, and after the start of the genocide in Gaza, it was even worse. Yeah, because you have the war in Iraq was like old people could remember, but young people maybe what happened in 2003. But there was like, oh, so they are going to expel all Israeli athletes now, and they are going to sanction Israel, and they are going to no, nothing happened. So at the end, it was like the behavior of all the Western civilized world was so obvious, so contradictory, and so absurd that even the people who are not very aware of that say, oh, what? And in Latin America as well. In Latin America, always this being with the special situation with the United States, a lot of people say just like, why so many Latin American communists love Russia? Russia is no longer communist. And then they say that it's a very typical thing that you can read on the social networks. But it's like, for Latin America, Russia is always been a friend. It doesn't matter if it's communist or not. That's not the problem. And the thing in Latin America is that, like, the thinking, it's just like if you like or not to the United States, and that's the way you behave. But for instance, China and Russia and all of these new countries, they don't care what's your system. I mean, China is just like, I don't care if you are Maoist or not. I mean, just like I can have friendly relations with that. Russia is exactly the same. But the United States and European Union, they don't think that way. They say, you have to behave like this and that to be in our garden. And when they need that, they forget about that as well. I mean, when they are in a hurry, they say just like, oh, we don't want Russian gas because it violates human rights. I mean, Russians violate human rights. And we are going to take it from Qatar. So at the end, it's another contradiction after another. So that became pretty obvious to the whole world and also Latin America.
Were the Latin American people surprised by the resistance of Russia? I mean, economical and that, in fact, they not only fight back, but the winning military, as a matter of fact. And is the surprise? I say, oh.
I think that, for instance, people who were familiar with history and that were not surprised at all. I mean, for instance, in Cuba, I'm pretty sure that they knew what's going to happen because they have the experience. They know the Russians pretty close.
And they resist already by themselves.
Exactly. And they have...
And they're not exactly Russia.
Exactly. And they don't have the same capabilities as Russia has. I mean, economically, it's the biggest country on earth. It's quite stupid try to build...
There are a lot of very nice...
Yes.
Nice shrimps, nice tobacco, and not all the rest that the Russia at the resist. So yeah.
But in Latin America, I mean, the people align emotionally or politically with the states. I'm sure they believed that Russia would collapse in 2 weeks, and the same speech, European and USA speech. But the Latin Americans familiar with the history of Russia, they say they are going to resist. They resisted the invasion of Nazi Germany for 4 years. They lost 27 million people. They will resist. They will fight, and they will win eventually this situation. But yeah, depending, as I said, of who you ask in Latin America. But people familiar with real history of Latin America and Russia, they have no doubts, I'm sure about that.
Regarding garden jungle thing, especially Europeans try to say to the world, oh, there is the fire in the garden with Ukraine, so it's your concern. Africa, that I know much better than Latin America, usually people are saying, no, it's your European problem. Please try to solve it because it's making a lot of disruption, but it's not our problem. It's yours. Is the same feeling in Latin America?
Yes, but the difference in Latin America is that they are not as affected by the situation in Ukraine as could be Africa, for instance. For Africa, there was like this problem with the grain and this. In Latin America, of course, there were problems, but from the beginning, Latin America, and in this case, they say more or less in the same way, we are not going to sanction Russia. I mean, if you want to sanction Russia, do it. We are not going to supply weapons to Ukraine, to Russia. It's not our job. It's not our duty. It's not our problem. And that became a problem for the Biden administration. And the Trump is not even trying. I mean, but Biden was consistently trying, just like they pressured from the European Union as well. Scholz was asking Lula for some German weapons that were in Brazil. Can you give us it's for a friend, and it is no, and they were pretty consistent. The president of Ecuador, in some moment, he was pressured to send all tanks and things that were Russian to the United States, and that they were going to send to Ukraine. And they at the end said yes. And then Russia said, are you sure? Because you are going to that, I'm not going to buy more bananas. And Ecuador sells basically all the bananas that are consumed in Russia are Ecuadorians. So the president said, oh, I changed my mind. So that's been more or less the situation. They say, okay, in fact, it is your problem. Try to solve it and don't try it. And after the shock of the sanctions against all the problems in the European Union, I mean, if they had some doubts in Latin America, they say, this is going to be, if we sanction Russia, we are going in some way or another to have the same problem as the European Union. And we don't have the same social reality. I mean, we cannot have more problems that we already have. So it's just like, no, good luck. Get your things done. Don't ask us to be against Russia. And there was even, for instance, RT was forbidden in the European Union, and they tried the same in Latin America. I mean, the South Command were doing just, RT shouldn't be, and they said no, and nothing happened about RT in Latin America.
You have a cool T-shirt.
Thank you very much.
The theme is a show T-shirt, yeah?
Yeah.
I have a last question. It's very deep, very important one.
I don't think so.
Yes, it is. It's very important. Are you a Russian agent from FSB?
I can say that on screen, but everybody knows I am.
Okay.
Of course. And even if I am not, even if I deny, I probably may be an agent without knowing it, as all agents are. True Russian agents doesn't know they are working for the GRU and the Comintern. So at the end, I may be one of them, another victim.
Thank you, Mirko, agent of the Comintern. It was very nice to have you on Fréquence Populaire. So, guys, I will do it in English because, or I'll be beaten by the guy who is doing the editing. So if you like the show, I think you liked it, and it's fantastic, Mirko. Please click on what you need to click and to get all the information from our channel. Please comment; it's important for us. And see you soon. Bye bye.